Welcome to Module 6, which is Chapter 7 of the FDOT Civil 3D Quantities. And Chapter 7 covers quantities by sheet. The objective of this chapter is to provide the designer an overview of the workflow to generate reports of traffic plan quantities, which are reported per sheet and automatically transferred to a formatted spreadsheet which is ready to be linked to the appropriate design file. The function has been added to Takeoff Manager, and it's called Quantities by Sheet, which works when you have view frame groups in a design file. You can be in model space and run the application on an unlimited number of view frame groups and frames at once. Unlike before, where you had to be in an individual sheet and run a per sheet report that produced an unformatted report for each sheet layout that the drawing contained. It is important to note that the sheet's view frames should be numbered as they would be in the plans, example being S1, S2, etc., since you could have duplicate view frame numbers on multiple alignments, which will create an error that lets you know that you have a duplicate named view frame. To get to the Quantities by Sheet dialog box, go to the FDOT ribbon and click on Takeoff Manager. And on the Quantity Reports tab, pull down the report extents and select Quantities by Sheet. And the dialog box appears. The first box here, View Frame Groups. This displays the available view frame groups in the drawing file that is open. They can either be in the source file itself or data referenced in. You can select and run all view frame groups at once. The application will not function without a view frame group present. For example, if I select a view frame group that's based on, in this instance, baseline 98, we have view frames that populate. And this list contains the individual view frames that are in the view frame group. You can select the entire list by dragging the mouse over the left side of the list or by holding the control key and left clicking your mouse. For output options, this is where you tell the application to save your report. You should save this report in your calculations folder in your project. The calculate button executes the report generation process. Upon completion, a message box opens informing you that the report was created successfully and without errors. After clicking OK, Microsoft Excel will launch and open the report. The Close button closes the Quantities by Sheet application. It is recommended that you also close Takeoff Manager after use. If FDOT applications are left open and the designer opens another drawing file, you do run the risk of crashing Civil 3D. Next, we will do exercise 7.1, which is a two-part exercise, which is running a report using Quantities by Sheet and then linking the Excel file to your design file. In this exercise, the designer will use an already set up file that contains view frames, alignments, and signing and pavement marking design information, and will run a report of traffic plan tabulation of quantities. The designer will then use Data Link Manager in part 2 of this exercise to link the report to the appropriate design file. So if you haven't already, open up the FDOT Civil 3D State Kit, and we're going to open up the DSGN sp01.dwg file, which is located in the signing folder within your data set. Once open, go to FDOT ribbon, click on Takeoff Manager, and select Quantities by Sheet. And we want to select the signing and pavement marking state route 61 as the view frame group. And notice that the list populates with 6 view frames. So we want to run a report on all of these view frames. So holding the left mouse button down, I'm going to drag down to include all the way down to 6. then let go. This selects all of the available view frames. Next, we'll select the file output directory, click on the ellipse button, which will browse or open up the Browse To folder location. So let's go to our project, our data set, and click on our calculations folder. And from here, select Calculate, which will launch the process to create the reports. After the quantities are calculated, a message comes up saying it was successfully created. Select OK. Then Excel should open, and we have a tabulation of quantities report. Now, if we had, say, 20 view frames as an example, you would have 7 sheets total on this sheet 1. It would then carry over to sheet 2 and continue on until all the view frames were counted. So it will automatically increase and have all your view frames listed in one report in one Excel file. And if you did have multiple sheets along the bottom here in Excel, it would carry forward a grand total for all of your sheets. So go ahead and click Exit and save this Excel file before we move on to Part 2. And it's important to have your Excel report and your Excel session closed before linking a file. Let's go ahead and close, take off Manager. Go to FDOT ribbon. We're going to, for Part 2 of this exercise, we're going to create a new file that will contain the linked spreadsheet file that was created in the previous steps. So select Create File, which opens up the application. Make sure the project, same location as the project that we're working from, the data set. The discipline, we're going to change this to roadway. The file group will be signing and pavement marking design files. And we're going to do a tab QSP, which is a tabulation of quantity sheets. If the file has already been created, you will have a 02 as a file sequence. Everything looks good. It's all green, which means it's a go. So go ahead and select Create Open File. In the background, we have the file that opened. It was created, the tab QS. So go ahead and select Close to close Create File application. And if you have the DSGN SP file still open, you can go ahead and close that. You can save it or not, since no modifications were made to that file. Okay, now we go to Home. We see that the layer is tables_DP. That is the correct layer that we want, current. With the layer set, let's go to the FDOT ribbon. And before we start the linking process, go ahead and click on the Model tab, because what we're going to do is bring this report in the Model tab and then switch over to the one scale layout, as you can see here, that contains the border, and we're going to manipulate the viewport to show the report. All right, so with Model, the current selection, click on Create Table, and from here we want to do from a data link, so select from a data link. You have two options here to open the data link manager. You can pull down and select it, or you can select the icon. And we want to create a new Excel data link, so go ahead and select that. And we're going to call this tab of QTY for tabulation of quantity, a little shortcut there. Select OK. And now it's wanting us to browse to the Excel file that we just created. Let's go ahead and select the ellipses button and browse to the calculations folder of your data set. There should be a tabulation of quantities. Go ahead and select Open. And from here, just keep selecting OK, OK, and OK. And you see on the bottom on the command line, it still says table, which means it's still working, so it's not locked up. Just have a little patience, and it will appear at the cursor. Left click and place it on the screen. Here it is on the screen. Go ahead and left click. We have our report shown. Now let's switch over to the one scale layout and double click inside the viewport to make it active. You can always tell when it's active as the red border gets thick. So let's go ahead and unlock this viewport. Now scale doesn't matter on these reports. Typically we use a 1 inch equals 40 scale, 1:1 for paper space. But with the report itself, all we're concerned about is does it fit within the 11 by 17 border. So with the viewport active and unlocked, go ahead and type in zoom extents, which will zoom the report to fill in the entire sheet. And from here you would click on the lock button to relock it. Now there is a AutoCAD bug concerning tables. If we zoom in, you can see the sheet numbers row is collapsed, and a simple fix for this is to left click inside the pay item cell. You see you have grips. Left click on this top grip here. Move it ever so slightly up, and left click and see that the sheet number row is now visible and that bug has now been fixed. From here you would, if you were continuing on, you would right click, hover over your one scale layout here, right click, select rename, and give it the sheet number and name that you need to give it. And you would also, if you had multiple Excel sheets, depending on how many sheets you have and how many reports you need, you would just continue copying the layout and then linking in each additional sheet. This concludes Module 6.